Welcome back to another first impression, this time for the anime The Water Magician. We have the synopsis from AniList, and it's a long one, sadly. Ryo is delighted to be reincarnated into the fantastic world of Phi, where he thinks he will get to live a quiet life learning to use his newfound water magic. Going with the flow here, however, means something very different. Ryo is immediately pitted against the wild lands he winds up in, and the slew of deadly monsters that call the remote subcontinent home. You would think he would forget about taking it easy when he's stuck fighting for his life. But lucky for Ryo, he's naturally optimistic, clever, and blessed with the hidden eternal youth trait. 20 years pass in the blink of an eye, and each encounter along the way pushes him one step closer to the pinnacle of human magic. Little does he realize that only the opening chapter for his tale. A fateful meeting soon thrust Ryo to the forefront of history, forever changing the course of his life. Thus begins the adventures of the strongest water magician the world has ever seen, who also likes to do things at his own pace. Now, the synopsis I do not like. It's too long, too much information. Especially, I do not like the last third, because this screams typical isekai. So that is not really good look in my opinion. But you know, for everyone themselves, I guess. Now, as the setup is saying here, I'm just going to explain the setup a little bit. So, we follow Ryo. Now, he dies. He does not seem to be too sad he died. He was like, yeah, I remember dying. And he gets reincarnated by an angel. So, not a god, an angel. And he's like, okay, I'm going to reincarnate you into this new world called Phi. In this world, like 20% of humans can use magic. So, you know, what do you want to do? And he's like, oh, I want to live a slow life. I don't know what the obsession is with like a slow life in Japan. Maybe it's because the work culture is so bad, like overtime, a lot of extra time, you know, drinking parties after work hours. Maybe that is why there's like this wish to just have a slow life, waking up, doing some stuff, not having to, you know, rush. Maybe that is the reason. But, you know, the angel is agreeing. He's like, okay, I'm going to reincarnate you into a remote area. You have a little home. This one is protected by some kind of barrier, so monster cannot approach you. I'm going to give you some food, 2 months worth of food. Good luck. And you have water magic aptitude. Good luck. So this is where, you know, we get to start enjoying the world. Now Ryo gets reincarnated. He's trying out his water magic. He's getting, you know, comfortable around. He sees like there's a knife, probably for some kind of work. He gets like 2 books. One of them is a Monsterpedia, some information about some of the monster. He's checking his food and he's like, okay, let me check my magic. He's trying his magic. Seems fine. Seems fine. It is just normal lukewarm water he can produce at the beginning, at least. And he's like, okay, so after 2 months I need to be able to procure food in some way. So he decides, hey, I'm going to try to use magic to fight. Solid idea. So we see him learning like his water magic. He's throwing water balls, not very effective. He's trying some other ideas. He's also learning how to manipulate his water in temperature so he can make warm water for his, you know, bath time, because he's Japanese and Japanese like their bath time. And also he learns to freeze water to make ice. Essentially, his idea was like, hey, if I can't really use water magic to fight because it does not seem too strong, how about I use ice? His example was an icicle lance. So, have like piece of ice and throw it at the enemy. Totally solid. Now, this is where we get like a little time jump. We see time passes. I'm assuming a month or maybe 2. And then he's like, okay, I'm set. Let's go out and, fight in the world. Go and, procure food, essentially. So this is the setup. Now, everything after that would be too close, too much spoilery. I'm going to talk about those parts later. There are a couple things I really did not like. There are some parts I really liked. Overall, the first 3 episodes, it feels like, story-wise, we are just at the beginning. It feels really just, hey, we're at the beginning, we are just getting started in the show. It feels a little bit that we may have sped up a couple of these parts, which is fine because, we need to get to, especially for anime, we only have like 12 episodes, so we need to get to the good parts to really, get people invested. However, I do like the progression, especially at the beginning. That is what I really like, at least a little bit. And we do get, we get progression here. Now, one part I do not remember at all. I checked about this paragraph. 20 years passed in the blink of an eye. I do not remember this in the anime at all. Now, this would give us a lot more, an idea, because if he was like 20 years in his little hut and he was training, getting stronger, I could see some of the parts I did not like being, a lot more explainable. However, if I remember correctly, the anime never told us, hey, 20 years passed. So I don't know. I know some time passed, 20 years, especially because he has the eternal youth trait, so he doesn't really age. It's hard to tell time apart. At the beginning, what they did before he went out to gather food, they showed like, oh, it's dusk, it's dawn, it's dusk, it's dawn, easy way to show time. So yeah, it feels like we are at the beginning. It feels like this could be a very solid anime. The beginning, in my opinion, is solid. It seems like this could be a very, good isekai story. Without all the OP stuff, hopefully we will see. Now, animation is solid. There are a couple parts that are a little bit iffy, but those are like filler parts that, it just is very noticeable if you have like, hey, looks good, and then you have a part of animation that looks pretty bad. It's like, it looks worse because everything else looks good. You have like this difference that is very noticeable. Character-wise, our guy is very optimistic, which we will see if he's too optimistic. I do not like those type of characters because at some point, too much optimism is a little bit unbelievable. Now, he's also, clever, quotation mark. In some parts, yes. In other parts, no. So, all of that later on. But the first 3 episodes, pretty solid. We get a lot of different things. We seem to get to some of the main parts. it seems like we are skipping or speeding up, not skipping necessarily, but speeding up some of the earlier stuff, which is like a lot of world building, a lot of slower introduction to the systems and stuff. I feel like the whole how he learned magic, you could have probably, you know, spent a lot of time in the source material explaining that here we get a quick enough rundown, but it feels good. It doesn't feel too rushed, in my opinion. Naturally, you could always expand on that if you wanted, but I understand we do need to get to the story, and if I want a little bit more in depth, I can always go to the source material. It is more than good enough. Now, AniList has it at 67-68. My anime list has it at a 7.2. I would say, because I'm hopeful, at the moment it looks like an 8 out of 10. It looks solid. The first 3 episodes look solid. There are some parts I do not like, some parts I do like. So it is solid. It feels like this could be a good, solid show. Now, spoiler territory here. Some parts I did not like. So we get into the first big fight. So the first big fight is him against a quote-unquote lesser boar, I believe was the translation. And what I liked, he's unable to fight. He's unable to move. He was never in this position before. He does have a weapon, but he was not really, you know, it's different to be in a life or death situation without any training, any real training. So I like that. That is very human. It is, you know, very rare we see that. It would have been nice to see him be a little bit reluctant to kill stuff. But, you know, we didn't really have that because he's also shown to be clever, because he's like, oh, I can't move. Damn. He moves out of the way, and then he's like still unable to move, even though he evaded the first attack. So he has to be quick. He has to, okay, what can I do? And he uses his ice magic to win the fight. Now, because of how he used his ice magic, he doesn't really need to deliver the death blow, which could have been one of the things to show a little bit reluctance. However, you know, how it is handled, very solid like that. Now, the part I do not like is that we just jump to different fights. He is fighting some kind of, I do not remember what it was, like some kind of flying monster, and he has a very hard time to fight him. Understandably, this shows, hey, he has fought a lot, so he's very much a lot more used to fighting. That is totally fine. We have a nice little fight. He's doing some stuff. The enemy counters. We have like a back and forth. Solid. It ends. Fine. Now the next part. This is the part this is questionable. Now in the book, we get a lot of information. Now, one of the information is very crucial because he is meeting a dragon. Now, the book was very clear. If you see a dragon, good luck. Maybe you can run, probably not, but you are probably dead. Now, he is meeting the dragon. He's shocked, sure. However, it does not, in my opinion, it does not have the impact it should have. In my opinion, he should have been, you know, he should have caved in. He should have been on his, on his butt. He should have been unable to really act in any way. But he is unfazed, seemingly. He's shocked, yes. But then the dragon talks to him. But he seems to be more or less unfazed, which is a little bit strange. Because, you know, this is one of the apex creatures in this world, seemingly. So being unfazed is a little bit weird, but sure. We also get like a side part with another creature. Don't really want to go too much into that. That one was totally fine. Now after this is one of the parts I find it's just a little bit meh. Now he gets a body. So this is pretty early on. And not watch characters. We get to meet Abel. Or Abel, whatever. One of the two. Now, he rescues him. This guy is very, he thanks him. He's like, hey, where am I? I need to go back to, my home. And he's like, can you help me? So they have a reason to go to wander to the next settlement. They do not know where it is exactly. But this is how those two come together and go adventuring. Now here, there are some parts which, again, he shows that he is seemingly somewhat clever. He's able to use Chandler's magic. However, whenever he uses magic, he's using chants to do his magic. So he always shows incantations to use magic. Now, I believe it's never really explained why he does it. My assumption is that because he doesn't know how the world works, he's just going to be safe. Now, the problem is he's a little bit too accustomed to how he fights, and he's showing how strong he is, which is a little bit iffy because this is, depending how you want to see it, it can be very dangerous. That is why I like that he uses incantations for his magic, because he doesn't know if he uses Chandler's magic, if people say he's a heretic or witch, or he's getting, people attack him, whatever. So better to use, chants, because the chance is higher that this is how the world works. Now, the problem is that even though he's clever in that part, he never really tries to get the information that should be important. Like, he doesn't know how the calendar works, he doesn't know the denominations of the currency, he doesn't really know how, some simple stuff, how distance is measured, time is measured, do we have like 60 minutes to an hour, do we have like 24 hours in a day. He does not ask any of these things in this journey, which is a little bit weird because, he was shown to be somewhat clever in some regards, but totally ignores these regards. Now we do get to cross, the mountain into inhabited areas. We get to do some fights, which we do see Abel somewhat perplexed and questioning what our guy Rio can do. So it seems like he's a little bit, reluctant. However, because they seemingly have grown a little bit closer and he has seen how Rio is, he's going to be like, accepting whatever he's doing, which he's doing some insane shit. But okay. The problem is, at this point, we as a viewer have no idea, and Rio himself has no idea how any of this shit could or should work. So for us it's normal. For Abel it's very weird. Now we get into the world, and this is where we get, this is, I believe, this is episode 3. This is, I believe, where the story really starts picking up, where we get introduced to more characters, we get to see more of the world, because at this point we are just isolated. We don't really get to see much of the overarching world. We only know there's like a kingdom and an empire, and the empire has like a name that Rio doesn't like. I believe it's like Oink or something. I believe that is the what we would translate it as, but I don't know. In the first city we get to, the first thing the big thing they get is, hey, here is the food, and that food is curry. Now they make a little joke that in most isekai stories it's like, hey, you have to work a long time before you can make curry because you need to make rice and then make the curry stuff. Here you just get curry. Not having curry in another word can be interesting to have something to work towards. But I'm definitely fine this way as well because this ties into the story, and this is one of the parts I like. It feels like that most of the things we get told and shown seem to be important for the story in some way, shape, or form. It's rarely like a one-off. As example, the curry being here is not like, hey, they have curry, what a coincidence. No, we get to see that later on he finally finds out, hey, this world has 30 days in a month, and I believe 12 months, and it has 24 hours in a day. It measures in centimeters. So seemingly someone else has come here and, disseminated this information. Now we also get told by the angel, we get a little flashback at the beginning where he finds out, hey, our guy has the hidden trait of eternal youth, and he's like, oh, this is a hidden trait, is so rare. The only one I remember is the girl I sent into another world 10,000 years ago. Now, one of the prominent characters featured in the opening as an example is an elf girl. Now, my assumption that is just a girl from 10,000 years ago that had the hidden trait, whatever that is, maybe immortality, maybe longevity, whatever. I'm assuming they are the same. And it would explain why we have all these, modern things in this world. Now, we get to traverse further. We get some information that if you want to go into a city, you need to pay more or less some money to get into the city, like a tax, somewhat along those lines. Unless you are an adventurer can go in free. We get to the other city where we get to then, start more or less the story. Our guy gets introduced to the adventurer guild. He gets his adventurer card or lake or whatever it is. I would have liked at that point to get some more explanation about, adventurers, what the benefit is, what the negative is. Another explanation is that we sell all the items to the Adventurers Guild because they pay good money. Do not like this explanation. What the main point of an Adventurer Guild is a middleman. They are the first point where you go to if you need something done. You need to get rid of like a group of orcs. You go to the Adventurer Guild, you say, hey, kill all these orcs, here you get 1,000 gold, whatever. And that is the point. Additionally, if you have materials, you go to the Adventurer Guild because the Adventurer Guild potentially, or most likely, has a lot of connections, and they then sell these goods to the parts of the, town that needs it. If it is like metal, they can sell it to the smiths and so on. That is, in my opinion, why you should have the Adventurer Guild as the main point of goods exchange instead of they just pay better. Why? Because there's no reason why the Adventurer Guild should pay better than the whatever alchemist or whoever needs the materials. It doesn't really make sense. Unless there's a bigger reason later on, but at this point, it doesn't make sense. Now we also get to we get a little information that the Adventure Gate is doing some tutorial type stuff like training exercise. One of them is dungeoneering. Our guy is like, yo, I want to go dungeoneering. Do not forget, he wanted a slow life. Now he's like, dungeons? Sign me the fuck up. I want to fight. What do you mean slow life? No. 20 hours dungeon every day. Awesome. You know, setup is already a little bit lost. Now, one of the big parts, and probably the biggest part I like, and that is, and I'm going to be honest, so Abel, he's part of a little group, a little adventuring team, and he is very well known in this town. Everyone likes him. This is seemingly a little bit of a bigger town. I don't know the comparison. However, he seems to be like the top dog in this town. People like him. He's very strong. He seems to be very important for the gate to do like different, more dangerous parts. So he is a bigger fish. Now what I like is that he and his group are B tier. They're not S tier. They're not A tier. They are B tier. And I do like that a lot, because in most stories you have like S tier characters, and then our guy comes in and is, this guy is even stronger. And it's like, but we are already at the top of, the scale. You can't really go up. So the scale doesn't really matter too much. In this case, we have B tier, and this B tier is already like awesome. People like them, mostly because they are also likable, but they are important enough at B tier to, secure whatever for the cities. They are important as B tier, which means if you see an A tier, that one is would be like a celebrity. And if you meet someone even higher, that would be like meeting a god, more or less. So you do have like areas where you can grow, which is, in many shows, the problem is that they tend to introduce too powerful characters too early on, which doesn't make it too exciting to get additional layers. One example is like solo leveling, where you have like the highest tier, and then it's like, the highest tier is just, we can't measure, which then is fine. And then it's like, but there's also a national tier, and it's like, okay, I see. So because we decided to introduce them early on, we now have to just pull out a name out of our ass to put on the stronger people. So seemingly we don't have that here. We also get a little glimpse of our character, of the elf girl or elven girl. Now, I do not feel like that was necessary, to be totally honest. They could have just left her all out for the time being, because we already got the snippets. We already know there's an elven girl here. We also know that there was a girl reincarnated somewhere 10,000 years ago. The angel did not really clarify into this world, as far as I remember. However, we can see there is some reincarnation happening here. And that is mostly it. We get like some other information. We get to meet some new characters, which are seemingly going to join us in the dungeoneering next time. But overall, really, the first 3 episodes all together seem like a really solid start. It could become a really solid isekai show that is, very nice watch. It could also, go down. We will see. But I am very hopeful. And so far, it was Definitely very enjoyable.